when the swallows come back to Capistrano.
The swallows have been coming back to the mission San Juan Capistrano for over 200 years. And each year, more and more tourists are coming back to watch these legendary birds return from their annual migration. The intrigue and the romance of the mission lure visitors to a visual feast of charming cloisters, shadowed arches, weathered pillars, majestic ruins of the great stone church, and the time-worn paths winding through magnificent gardens. The tradition of the mission began in the 18th century when the peaceful Ahachame Indians, also known as the Juaninos, lived in the California wilderness. Residing in small villages, they fished, made flour from acorns, wove watertight baskets, and worshiped deities in nature, the sun, and the moon. At the same time, Franciscan missionary priests from Spain were committed to bringing religion, culture, and education to the Indian population. In 1769, Don Gaspar de Portola, the first Spanish governor of California, led an expedition from San Diego to present-day Capistrano. There he discovered a lovely valley with numerous wild grapevines. Nearby he found native villages. This was the first known encounter that these Juaninos had with the white Europeans. 7 years later, Father Junipero Serra returned to the same area and officially founded the Capistrano mission on November 1st of 1776. This site was selected because it was halfway between the missions of San Gabriel and San Diego. This chosen land extended from the ocean at what is now Dana Point Harbor to the King's Highway where the mission structures were situated. One of the first buildings to be erected was the long and narrow Serra Chapel, where Father Serra preached. The Padres' living quarters were also built at that time, as well as storehouses, a trading school, kitchen, work areas, and living quarters for the Indians and soldiers. The soldiers served as a deterrent to keep the Russians, the English, and the French from encroaching on this territory. They also served as teachers of European skills, such as the tanning of hides, soap and candle making, and carpentry. The Padres introduced cattle and livestock, citrus fruits, dates, melons, and the concept of large-scale agriculture. Everything essential for the welfare of the Padres and the Indians was produced at the mission. Helen McMullen, you are a Native American. What can you tell us about the Indians' early work here at the mission?
Well, the women made candles, crushed grapes and olives, scraped hides, ground wheat, made soap, and wove cloth for wearing apparel and blankets. The men rounded up cattle, cut wheat, made sun-dried adobe bricks, loaded carts with roof tiles, washed and stretched cattle hides, picked fruit in orchards, and wrought iron products in metal-making furnaces. The mission was the first industrial center in Orange County.
In 1797, the Juaninos and the Padres began construction on the Great Stone Church, one of the largest stone buildings among the California missions. Built in the shape of a cross, it was 175 feet long and 80 feet wide. Its bell tower was 125 feet tall and could be seen for 10 miles. Only 6 years after its completion, a major earthquake destroyed much of this church, killing 40 Indians, most of whom were attending Mass. Services were once again held in the Little Serra Chapel, and the bells from the fallen tower were hung in a nearby bell wall. There the bells continued to be used to call the Indians for worship, labor, meals, sleep, births, deaths, and marriage. For 20 years the mission prospered and was home to over 1,000 Native Americans. However, in 1821, Mexico won its independence from Spain. Harry Kelsey, you are a historian. What happened when the Mexican government took control of the mission?
When the Mexican government secularized the mission lands in 1833, there were almost 900 Indians living at the mission. Most of the mission property and land did not go to the Indians. Most of it went to politicians. The Indians had to leave themselves. They went to work on nearby farms and ranches, and a good many of them went to Los Angeles to find jobs in Los Angeles. About 12 years later, about 1845, Pio Pico, who was the last Mexican governor of California, sold the mission property to his brother-in-law, John Forster, and his partner, James McKinley.
Tony Forster, how would you describe life at the mission when your relatives lived here?
It was a time when life was both pleasant and difficult here. Many of the goods had to be imported from Mexico. Large tracts of land were granted to those who requested the same of the Mexican government. And in 1830, my great-great-grandfather, Don Juan Forster, arrived here and married Pio Pico's sister. It was because of this association that the Forster family acquired the Mission San Juan Capistrano for $710.
Following the war between Mexico and the United States, the mission became U.S. government property in 1848. It was during this time of secular and private ownership that the buildings fell into decay. Mission tiles and timbers were sold, given away, or plundered. Without the protection of tiled corridors, the adobe walls washed away. The interiors were exposed to the elements. The mission's beams and arches began to crumble. Weeds proliferated, and greedy administrators stripped its goods and livestock. It was on March 18, 1865, that President Abraham Lincoln returned the Capistrano mission buildings and a little land to the Catholic Church. The following year, Father Jose Moot arrived at the site to begin what would be 20 years of service and struggle in dilapidated buildings. The mission was in a severe state of decay, and in 1891 the Sarah Chapel was deemed unsafe for church services and was converted to a storage area. Mr. Mendelson, your family has lived in San Juan Capistrano since 1870. What can you tell us about the Landmark Club?
The Landmark Club was founded by the newspaper man Charles Loomis, who I knew personally, for the purpose of restoring the mission in 1895. The roofing of the Sarah Chapel began over 5,000 square feet, and the corridors were roofed with gravel and asphalt. Serious breaches of the adobe walls were rebuilt. Concrete supports were created by the crumbling pillars of the ruined stone church. The efforts of the Landmark Club saved the remaining part of the mission from total ruin.
The next caretaker of the mission was Father John O'Sullivan. Suffering from terminal tuberculosis, he arrived at the ruins of the mission in 1910. He compared the buildings to himself, whose body was far gone in decay. He began the restoration of the Sarah Chapel, California's oldest building in continuous use. This he completed in 1924. The idyllic Southern California climate prolonged O'Sullivan's life, and in the following years, both the priest and the mission were returned to health. It was Father O'Sullivan who made the mission San Juan Capistrano famous when he published Capistrano Nights, a collection of tales and legends and stories, in 1930. This publication included the story of the cliff swallows, who return each year on March 19th to build their mud nests. Radio broadcasts spread the word of the birds' return, and the 1939 hit song, When the Swallows Come Back to Capistrano, written by Leon Rene, cemented both the legend and the mission's fame. To this day, gradual restoration has reclaimed many of the original buildings, but earthquakes continue to threaten this historic national landmark. Monsignor Paul Martin, what is being done here at your mission regarding cultural resource management?
Archaeology is being done here, and books of an historic and research nature are being published. And you're in Mission San Juan Capistrano, which is a real center for students of all levels of learning. It's a real educational resource and an historical resource. As a matter of fact, one of the things that we face is that this is situated in a seismic earthquake zone that needs continual work. And we look here at the roof, and it's part of the beginning of our work in meeting the codes so that our tourists, our students are all protected safely and can visit the mission in a sense of tranquility and a protected environment. And of course, conservation and preservation require an ongoing effort.
With your tax-deductible donations to the Mission Preservation Campaign, you can help save this priceless jewel, this international treasure, as a legacy to those generations who follow us. As Charles Loomis once wrote, "The vital fact is that whoever owns these monuments, they are yours and mine, and every other one's who care for the beauty and the romance. They are here, a graphic lesson for us, for our children, for our children's children, an example in artistic and architectural beauty, in sincerity, in heroism, and in the belief that nothing is impossible. Your help is needed now to save this important historic landmark, this home of the swallows, this jewel of the California missions."
Como aves precursora de primavera, en Madrid aparecen las violeteras que van pillando, parecen golondrinas que van volando, que van volando. Con premios desde ramito, no vale más que un real.